well, after all these years, I have learned something at Toastmasters. Not much, but there we go. And it does work. And I think that's what our masterclass leader will tell us tonight as well, when preparing for a contest speech. Just a little something about our speaker tonight, Frank. He's been a Toastmaster since 2012, so he's still relatively new. And he has had the pleasure of being District 74 Governor, and that was in 2018. And he's a member of two clubs, Entrepreneurs Club in Pretoria and La Ventura Toastmasters in Johannesburg, which is an Anglo-Francophone club. That's quite interesting. I didn't know this club existed. So amazing what happens. Frank is a leadership coach and a speaker, and he helps executives lead high-performing teams. He also helps aspiring entrepreneurs to turn their ideas into sales. And Frank has 15 to 20 minutes, and after that, we'll do a quick question and answer session, because I'm sure there'll be lots of questions. So our masterclass leader tonight, Frank Tsuro, preparing a contest speech. Frank Tsuro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, 3 years ago, I had the opportunity of my dreams, but one word ruined it. I'd gone to Dubai a year before, and I had actually been presenting at another forum, delivering a workshop. One of the leaders came through and they said, we need someone like you to come and talk to us about the future of leadership and how to deal with, the so-called problematic millennials that are finding themselves in the workplace and are too lazy to do anything. So I went out, I prepared everything that I could. I did so much research and did a lot of other things to prepare for this presentation, only to go there and present the speech. And afterwards, I could tell as I spoke that I wasn't getting enough reaction. The energy was not the same. But I had gone through all the trouble of preparing myself to make sure that I was ready for this presentation and made things work. What could it have been? Now, what I didn't understand at that time, coming from Zimbabwe, which is largely a Christian country, is that when you speak about the future in the Islam culture, you need to use the word inshallah, God willing, because they believe that your right to live into the future is in the hands of the Creator. And so each time I shared all these brilliant ideas about how leadership could look into the future, all I appeared to them was a young, naive person who was arrogant about his chances of living into the future. And so it didn't matter what I said, but they didn't listen. And I learned the very first important thing that I would like to share with you today. Communication, in whatever sense, is all about respect. They say culture eats strategy for breakfast. It doesn't matter how much value you have to give, how much we're supposed to listen to you, unless you respect my culture. If you're going to be speaking to me, unless you understand my background and what I'm going through, then you're not going to break through to me. Over the last few days, over the last couple of weeks, it appears that I've had a dance with the monarchy, starting off with one of the famous interviews that happened in the USA on Oprah's show a couple of weeks back. Meghan Markle, according to some British people, had the nerve to go on national television and say that she thought that all the royal traditions were just a fairy tale from the book. What a way to try and convince and respond to some people you believe are criticizing you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to speak at any audience, it's only right for you to actually study the culture of where those people are coming from. Just today on ENCA, I saw a lot of pictures from the burial of the Zulu king, the Zulu king that just passed on. And I noticed that when you speak at that platform, they have some praises that they chant each time they're speaking to the king. And so if you want to be successful as a contest speaker, you've got to understand what the background looks like. So for those of you who are planning on getting into the contest, and thank you for reminding me of the name, King Zwelithini. Thank you very much. For those of you planning to get into the contest, there are three things or three resources that I would like you to speak to your contest organizer or use Google and actually familiarize yourself with. The first one is the judging criteria. Surely if you're going to enter the contest, you need to know what you're going to be judged against. You need to know the rules of the game. I remember when I was a contest organizer for Toastmasters in Southern Africa, I had a lot of disputes of people who came in and who had given speeches maybe at club level. And because sometimes during club events, we tend to be lenient if someone goes over time. And so some people took it that some of those rules were negotiable, and yet they went. I remember one day listening to one of the most brilliant humorous speakers who shared a riveting speech, only to find out later after they had competed that they had not reached the level in which they were supposed to reach before they actually are eligible to compete. That became their downfall. So for you, it is imperative that you go on Google and type the International Speech Contest Judging Criteria PDF, and I promise you that will come up. The International Speech Contest Judging Criteria, and you could put Toastmasters and PDF, and you will see what you'll be judged on. And some of the things you notice on that judging criteria is that 50% of the weighting goes to content, 30% is delivery, and 20% is language, language, the appropriateness of language, and the accuracy of your language. So when you know what you're going to be judged against, then it becomes very easy for you to know how to prepare for the contest. The next thing that I'm going to encourage you to do is I would like you to go and understand the etiquette of the speech contest. For example, go onto YouTube, go and Google the speeches of world champions of public speaking. Watch 2 or 3 speeches and find out what kind of speeches people deliver. Then beyond that, come down and say, Southern African, go to the Toastmasters 7-4 YouTube channel and search for some of the winning speeches in Southern Africa and Google and find some of the examples of speeches that have won in the past so that you get to understand a little bit of the local culture of speeches. Now, if you wanted, you could go deeper and either go onto YouTube and listen to other speakers at club level, or better still, you could visit other clubs in the division and listen to what kind of speeches they are delivering. That way, you are able to know what kind of speech tends to win it for the audience. And that way you're able to best prepare yourself for the journey ahead. So I want you to go and actually just study the whole concept of, the types of speeches that win, because that will set you in good stead. And with the judging criteria and knowing what others have done before, that will certainly give you a lot of confidence going into the speech contest. The third thing that I'm going to encourage you to do is that you need to know your audiences. Imagine you've come up with a message and you now are delivering the speech. Remember, we said communication is all about respect. Now, your message may apply to ladies and gentlemen, but the truth is on this platform, we've got no ladies. So when you're delivering your speech at Forum Toastmasters, try and adapt your speech to speak to men and the challenges that the men you're speaking to can relate to. The moment you start bringing ladies, there's an element of that comes into the audience brain at times where they just feel like you're generalizing. You didn't write it for me. And that is what then loses. That's what maybe contributes to you losing some of the connection that you need to have with the audience. So I want you to study the audience, because when you go to the area contest, suddenly I can promise you there will be ladies. And now you need to include stories that will connect with that audience in terms of people. And when you study the audience, you find that you give the same message, maybe from the time you started the club contest until you're in the finals of the World Championships of Public Speaking. But the way you deliver the message will depend on the culture and the people you're delivering, and the people you're delivering to. So remember, Google Toastmasters International Speech Contest Judging Criteria, PDF. Go on to YouTube and find out how other people are doing their speeches. And number 3, know your audiences at all levels. Speak to many of the Toastmasters here who've been here for a very long time. They will help you analyze some of the audiences and help you prepare adequately. And so that's the first thing. Communication is respect. And I don't care how much you know or how much I should listen to you. If you do not have my respect, I will likely not listen to you. And that is how you win over an audience. The second thing, as a contest speaker or just a communicator in any way, you need to earn the right to be on stage. One day I was at a workshop and someone said a beautiful phrase, which at that time I actually thought was a very harsh statement. They said, the world is not your emotional hospital. The world is not your emotional hospital. And I remember previously listening to the 1995 world champion of public speaking, Mark Brown, as he shared how your story earns the right to go into your own audience. And he said that unless you have healed from whatever scars that you have, you cannot deliver your speech. The only time you can deliver a speech about the challenges you faced in your life and how bad things have gone for you is only when you've got something to teach that is positive out of that. So for example, you could have suffered a grave loss in your life. If you come here and deliver that, you know what? The truth is, we will feel sorry for you. But the other thing is, you might emotionally blackmail your audience if you share such a heavy story with the audience. But if maybe you took the angle, an empowering angle, to say, you know what, you may have lost someone. One thing I realized from my own loss is that, only time can heal the pain. This is what I did to overcome the pain. Then suddenly you know that you're ready to deliver a message. So it's important that you earn the right to speak to your audience with, usually no one I know has ever won the World Championships of Public Speaking with someone else's story. It's got to be your own story. So that's already a hint for the new speakers. Prepare a personal story. And sometimes what you could do is, I actually used to dream when I was growing up that, I wanted to change the world. And my idea of changing the world was I was going to gather an audience of 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 people. Then I would speak to all of them and suddenly I would change 10,000 lives, until I had Mark Brown at the very same conference, the 1995 World Champion of Public Speaking, say, if I leave a room with 2,000 people and one person in the audience says, you know what, your message spoke to me, then I've achieved my objective. The truth is, your message may not be relevant to 90% of the audience. In fact, that story may not even resonate with them. But if you if you create a persona in your mind, one person whom you are the ideal audience, you're actually trying to deliver the message to. And in your speech, you try and find someone who connects with that message and speaks to that person. The 90% that find your message irrelevant to them will eavesdrop and they will appreciate you for changing the one person's life in the audience. So don't try and change everyone's life. Just be aware of their nuances, just so you maintain the respect with them. But at the end of the day, just target the one or two people in your audience who really need to hear your message, and the rest of the audience will eavesdrop into that. So that's the thing. That's the thing when it comes to earning your right to speak. And so that's the beginning of the strategy side of things. You need to have a message. Now, how do you know if your message is good? 1999 world champion of public speaking, Craig Valentine, says, if you are able to articulate what you want your audience to know, feel, or do, or think after listening to you in 10 words or less, then you are clear about your message. Now, at this stage, I want you to pause and think about the last speech that you delivered. Are you, in your mind, clear about what you were trying to say in 10 words or less? The last speech you delivered, are you clear about the message you were trying to deliver in 10 words or less? Now, if that speech was a brilliant speech, imagine how much better that speech would have been if you yourself were very clear about what you wanted to say in 10 words or less. One of my most memorable speeches, the message was, you are practice away from perfection. It's never too late to follow your dreams. Your dream is not for sale. Ladies and gentlemen, when you have a message in 10 words or less, not only does it become clearer to you, but it allows the audience to easily follow and understand your speech, which is the next thing. Once you're clear about your message, the next thing you want to do is you want to play around with different structures that you can apply to your message that will make things work. Remember, at contest level, everyone is bringing in their A game. So it's not even just about the message. Sometimes the tiebreaker is in how you deliver it. And so just the choice of maybe instead of doing a chronology of your life, just the concept of actually focusing on one scene of your life that changed your entire life, and putting it into a unique structure like that can actually just take your speech to the next level. So when you're clear about your message, try and experiment with the different structures. And in this club, we've got so many experienced Toastmasters with legacy experience. And so you could go to them and they could share with you some of our traditional manuals, which speak about some of the different structures you can apply to your speeches. And that way you are able to make a bigger difference and make sure that everything goes well. Then the third thing is about delivery. So I've spoken a little bit about this, but part of delivery is the words you use. It's important that you use words that are understandable. The first time I coached one of my friends, Lloyd, to his first Southern African Championship of Public Speaking, he gave an amazing speech called Bones at a conference that was held in Pretoria. And some of you may have been in the audience as he dazzled that audience, and everyone was on their feet laughing. But the moment that speech went to Malaysia and he was speaking about porridge, many of the people in Malaysia did not know what porridge was, right? And so the choice of words is very important. And this is true if you're giving a corporate presentation. If you're speaking to people who are from a technical background, it's important that you use some of that technical language, because the audience will understand exactly what you're trying to say. But if you're speaking to my mother and you're speaking about a subject like accounting, which is my background, you cannot speak about double entry or debit and credit. You've got to talk about money in, money out, even though that sounds like cash flow in accounting, but that's how she's going to connect with it. And a lot of times when you share a personal story that's real, you never find yourself smiling during a sad story, or you never find yourself sad during a happy place. Naturally, when you tell a true story, what happens is as you relive the moment, if it was an exciting moment, your speech rate naturally increases and you start smiling and you start feeling it. Or if you're sad, normally your tone goes lower and the sadness comes naturally because you're talking about something real. That is the body language. And your voice, that's the same thing. And there's some intentional aspect that you can do to improve your delivery. For example, you want to bring the vocal variety. Instead of narrating a story, why not actually bring in a character to help with dialogue? And naturally, as you bring dialogue, a character into your speech and bring in the dialogue, there's now some action and you bring to life the conversation. We start to feel the personality, the attitude, and sometimes we start even hating a character. And when you start doing that, when people start taking sides on your characters, then you know that you've connected with your audience. And then the last thing is practice, practice, practice. A lot of people end up winning a lot of the contests, particularly at Southern African level and international level, have practiced their speeches anything from 30 to 150 times by the time they get to the World Championships. So practice your speech to different audiences, and that's how you know whether what you've written actually works. So try and practice your speech in front of your family and your friends. And after you do that, you come to the club contest. Beyond the club contest, go to one or two other clubs and practice it. And then you go to the area contest, keep practicing and iterating it. And that's how you're able to get better. Now our contest will be online. Be prepared. Practice delivering it on a virtual stage. Some people have got not so good front cameras, but if you turn your phone around, it may work. And only if you practice, you're able to do that. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is how some of the tips that I could share in the time I have on how to present a winning speech, whether it's for a contest in Toastmasters or any other thing. And so right now, I see I'm out of time and I will invite anyone with questions. Maybe Mr. Timekeeper, before I move on to questions, I'd just like to understand if there is time for questions in the first place, or Mr. Toastmaster.
Yes, certainly, Frank, there is time for some questions. I think it would be silly not to have questions, yes. But thank you for that, Frank. There was certainly energy. There was certainly etiquette, there was emotion, and I got the message, 10 words or less. And if a politician can get that message, then anybody can. So I've learned 10 words or less. I'll try that in future. Ladies and gentlemen, any questions?
Mr. Toastmaster.
Oh, Demiso, yes.
Thank you, Frank, for such an insightful presentation. Now, when you speak to an audience, unless you're speaking to your colleagues or to your family, but naturally you do not necessarily know who's going to be there. How do you structure the message in such a way that it speaks to almost everyone without generalizing, like you warned us against generalization?
Okay, thank you very much. So it's true that you won't always know who's going to be present. And in such an instance, I mean, these days, it's amazing the extent that people go to actually just learn about their customers and do that. So the truth is, the more you find ways to dig about the audience or the people that tend to attend the contest, then the better. But a tip I would give to a lot of the contest speakers at club level, which is probably more practical, is that learn the culture of, if it's at club level, learn the culture of the club. So you guys know each other, so it will probably be easy. But when you go to the area contests, find someone who can explain to you the area of the content, the culture of the area. Someone who can tell you which kind of clubs are there, what's the dynamics there, what's this club for, what's their focus, what are they all about? Those are the things that help you. And then when you go to the division contest, find someone that tells you the culture of the division. And your area director can be a resource that can help with that. Your division director or any senior member in the area or division or district. Or sometimes you could look at past speeches at club, area, division or district level available on YouTube, and that will guide you in that. So I hope that will help a few other people.
Thank you, Frank. Any further questions? Anybody? No other questions. Well, Frank, then I think that you certainly got your ideas across, and I think people learned, and thank you very much for...
I have questions.
Yes?
Yes, it's first time attending such an occasion, and I wanted to know, how does one join Toastmasters? As also, are we going to be exposed to further meetings of such nature? Because I'm a teacher, and I like I've introduced my learners to a lot of speech contests, and I feel I'm also a speaker personally, because anything that has to do with speech, oratory, poetry, I feel I happen to like it a lot. And I didn't think I would last this long in this meeting, but I was attracted by the contributions that I've had today. So mainly is there going to be continuation of such, and how does one join any team or for Toastmasters? Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to take it first, and then maybe I'll pass it on to, I don't know, Ndumiso, the Vice President of Membership. So at Toastmasters, we believe that you cannot learn how to swim by reading a book. You cannot learn how to ride a bicycle by reading a book. So we believe we won't give you just the theory. We've got some of the best manuals that will give you that etiquette we were talking about. Say, if you're giving a motivational speech, what does a motivational speech look like? How do you structure it? And so if you see value in what you're seeing, we've got some great content that works on that front. And then what we usually do is we follow it up with these events every 2 weeks. Because remember, you need to keep practicing it, and you need to keep getting better. We are a gym for public speaking, or a gym for leadership development. So if you want to develop your public speaking skills, for example, we will give you the stage, and you will practice yourself until you take yourself to the next level of speaking. Now, in terms of how you join, I'm going to, the first step you've accomplished, you've come to this club, and if you like what you saw, I'm going to invite someone from the club to explain to you how you could join quickly.
Thank you, Frank. Our Vice President Membership is Percy Mabusela, and I think he'll be in contact with the guest very soon and explain how to sign up. It's a simple, easy thing. No complications at Toastmasters. I also see Lebo. You also want to ask a question? Please go ahead.
Thanks, Peter. Good evening, everyone. I found your masterclass very insightful, Frank. Thank you so much for those tips. But I just also wanted to find out, you know, with the virtual meetings, it's such a challenge now to be able to see your audience's reaction or their expressions to what you're sharing. How do you deal with that? How do you overcome that? Because obviously, you know, every speaker kind of gets that energy from the audience. In the virtual world, there's not much of that because we're all behind cameras.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, Frank.
Thank you very much. And I think this really speaks to the environment. Sometimes we called to present in unideal environments with a lot of pressure, but we still have to deliver. And my advice would be, if you're lucky enough, like I was in this event, to actually have a few people with their cameras on, then that will help. However, if it's not going to help, what I'm actually going to suggest to you is master the art of speaking to yourself. I remember the first time in 2016 when I had to actually deliver a workshop, a professional workshop, paid online. And at that time, it was actually through an audio channel. We were using an audio GoToMeeting without much video because of bandwidth. And it was so awkward learning to speak to myself and not getting feedback or laughter because everyone was muted. But part of being a professional is getting comfortable with actually delivering in such instances. I remember at some point, even physically, I went to the Breakfast Club in Cape Town, and they met at a McDonald's at the Cavendish Mall, and there was just so much noise. And you learned how to deliver in such a difficult platform. So when you're delivering online, my suggestion is just practice, speaking to yourself and not getting feedback. Also give the speech, to deliver the speech to an audience, maybe your family or anyone that you can have in front of you, and find out where the reactions are. And what that will do is when you ask people to think, give them some time to think. When people have to laugh, give them some time to laugh, even though you may not give as much time. We're in a physical environment. Maybe the laughter stretches and you don't want to speak over the laughter. Just shorten your pause in such a way that allows you to do that. So it's really a way of trying to, learn the new environment and make the most of it. The truth is, the moment you expect yourself to deliver as well as you did in a physical environment, you already put yourself under unnecessary pressure because it's not going to be the same. Many people will tell you here who've mastered communication that when it comes to, say, resolving human issues, which is what we do with communication and speech, a voice call will always trump a text message. A video call will always trump a text message and a voice call. And if nothing will ever beat face-to-face. So just make the most of what you have on the platform and take it on.
Thank you, Frank. Any further questions? Okay, no further questions then. Thank you very much, Frank. Most informative, and it's wonderful to have you at our club again. You're always welcome, remember. You're always welcome visitors and guests to our club.